From once being the pinnacle of motorsport to now being dominated by just one team, Formula One is getting kinda boring. And it's not just me, Jeremy Clarkson thinks so too. Ex-Top Gear presenter and self-proclaimed motorhead, Jeremy Clarkson stated that he was extremely excited at the start of a new F1 season. However, now he feels that excitement has already faded. And that's because of Red Bull.
It's soul-destroying, the amount of work, and I was out last week in, honestly, sideways rain, really heavy, hard rain.
But at one point, he also found F1 boring because of Mercedes. Before the Bahrain Grand Prix, Jeremy stated that he adores F1. He talked about how it was infuriating to see Mercedes win by massive margins year after year. Clarkson also talked about how F1's back, because the teams can now follow each other a lot more closely because of the new ground effect aerodynamics. Before the race, Jeremy stated that it was going to be Max that wins the race. And guess what? He was right. Not only did Red Bull manage a terrific 1-2 in the season opener, but they did the exact same thing in the next race. Only this time, the team did it with Sergio Perez at the front. But even then, it's not like what Max pulled off wasn't exciting. That's because he made his way up all the way from P15 to P2. Plus, winning isn't the only thing the team managed to do. In both races, Red Bull gave their drivers target lap times to hit, instead of encouraging their drivers to race each other. Even though Red Bull did lose out on the fastest lap in the first race, that too to Zhou of all people. But despite that, in the second race, it was Red Bull's Max Verstappen who took that fastest lap for that precious 1 point. And that's what the entire season is going to look like, isn't it?
Plonked some side skirts down the side of his Mercedes. This is unwise because Mercedes employs some really very talented stylists who spent many years studying the art of styling.
With Red Bull finishing 1-2 and the fastest lap going to one of their drivers, right? Cause let's be honest, this part is pretty darn predictable, and that's exactly what's bothering Clarkson. But there's still more to what's annoying the guy. Like, yes, he doesn't like just how predictable it has become, but there's more to it. He also doesn't like how cautious the sport has become. Talking about all of this in his Sun column, Clarkson has stated how annoyed he is at the way things are going this season. He's clearly been left bemused by the racing this time around. He stated that he likes to think that when it's lights out, every single driver goes round the corner and down the straight as fast as they mechanically and humanly can.
You said that if there weren't fewer cars on the roads, more people using buses, by the time you finished, in 5 years, you could be judged a failure.
I didn't say that.
And that is what really happens, right? Because in the end, isn't that what racing is all about? Well, not anymore, according to Jeremy Clarkson. The Clarkson's Farm presenter stated that when Lewis Hamilton came up behind his teammate George Russell in Saudi Arabia, Russell solved the problem, and he solved it by going more quickly. Makes sense. But what doesn't make sense here is, why didn't he do that in the first place? Why did he drive under his capacity to begin with? Then you had both the Red Bulls, the two drivers who were told to do the same speed as the other just to stop them from racing. And here's the thing, we all know that Red Bull was already running its cars way under their capacity. If the team wanted to, it could have easily won the races by 2 minutes. Okay, that might be an exaggeration, but there's a reason the teams do that though. Like, yes, these cars are running under their max potential, but that's only because running them at their 100% will cause problems. First is the most obvious one, which is tire wear. Cause yeah, that doesn't ruin the car per se, but it does make the driver have more pit stops. Given that pitting costs around 20 seconds, not ideal in a sport where every single millisecond counts. Second is the engine. Here's the thing, each car is allowed 2 power units per season. If you run it to its max and then ruin it, you're gonna have to get a new one, which is expensive and leads to a penalty. So yes, it makes perfect sense that teams are looking at the bigger picture rather than just one race. However, Clarkson doesn't think so. He stated that, "I wonder how many people would watch athletics if they thought half the competitors were not going as fast as they could to prolong the life of their shoes." I'll be honest here, this does make sense. However, F1 does seem to plan to get to net zero by 2030, so it can't afford to be getting new engines for every race, to be honest. However, not being able to race race isn't the only reason why Formula One's boring. It's also the fact that for the past 14 years, there's been total domination by just two teams. Think about it. In the past 14 years, Mercedes has won the Constructors' Cup 8 times. Red Bull has won that cup 5 times, and it's on its way to winning it for the 6th time. Plus, only 4 drivers in all these years have ever won a world championship: Sebastian Vettel, Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, and Max Verstappen. So yeah, the sport is getting kinda boring if you think about it, especially since this season, it seems Red Bull is going to win every single race. And people do love to blame Red Bull for making this happen, especially the newer guy. But let's not forget, this was Mercedes at one point too. Because of their utter dominance of the sport, Mercedes made Formula One quite boring to watch. The German team won 8 years in a row, and it always supplied the winner of the championship too. At that time, literally every single team's engine just couldn't compete with Mercedes' engine. They built a really high-performance, high-fuel efficiency engine, and no one could ever get close to that. But that's not all. The engine was reliable as heck too. However, according to Gene Haas at the time, this killed what Formula One was really about: racing. Here, just look at what he said. Who wants to go race when you know who's winning every time? He also stated that this just gets super boring. Haas, and everyone who's kinda hating on Red Bull and Mercedes is right, because in 14 freaking years, we've only gotten to see one season which was amazing as heck: the 2021 season.
Drive to Survive. Oh my god.
In the 2021 season, we had a made-for-TV championship battle that went to the last race. And in that year, the thing that Jeremy mentioned, the one where he does not like the fact that drivers aren't pushing their cars to the limit, was solved. Because honestly, in that camping, every single point mattered. Even the 1 point you get when you get the fastest lap. So we didn't really have to watch boring races, since every single event was a nail-biter. But then the year after that, Max wrapped up the championship by fall. And this time he's gonna do it by summer, isn't he? I mean, there's a reason that F1 viewership, after being on a massive rise, declined in the United States in 2023. That's because it's gotten too predictable and fans of all the other teams are starting to just lose interest. Don't get me wrong, 1.32 million people still tuned in to watch the season opener, but it was still slightly less than how many people joined in 2022, and that's concerning. And to be honest, F1's gonna want to do something about this.
And then somebody's going to go, "How much for your bacon?" "Why are you charging so much?" "Because it costs a fortune to do it." So,
You've really put a mental image now in a lot of people's minds.
And that's all for what Jeremy thinks about Red Bull and Mercedes making Formula One boring.